In the summer of 2006, in a small apartment not far from Virginia's old execution chamber, an 82-year-old man living his final days insisted on giving a suitcase to the Library of Virginia. His family had no idea the suitcase existed, much less could imagine what was inside. Inside were tape recordings and documents, things that for the next 16 years would become one of the state's most closely guarded secrets. The library classified them as restricted access and intended to keep them carefully hidden from the public for decades, turning the contents into a complete mystery. But an NPR investigation broke that silence. They demanded the tapes be made public and eventually obtained them. What they discovered stunned everyone. Inside those old reels was something almost no one in the world had ever heard. 4 actual audio recordings of executions carried out in Virginia from 1987 to 1990. Previously, only 19 execution recordings from Georgia were known to exist. That was all that existed in U.S. public archives. The donor was R.M. Oliver, a former Department of Corrections employee who had passed away by that time. To this day, it remains a mystery how he obtained these official materials and why he secretly chose to donate them to the Library of Virginia instead of destroying or keeping them hidden. What makes the story even more puzzling is that Oliver had left his last position in Richmond before any of the executions recorded on these tapes took place. So where did he get them from? And why would a retired man decide to carry this secret for so many years, only to hand it over in the final moments of his life? In this video, we will listen to one of those recordings, the execution of Alton Wayne in 1989. We advise caution as this is sensitive material, presented here entirely for documentary purposes, with no intention to incite or provoke. Alton Wayne was convicted of brutally assaulting and murdering Mrs. Laverne B. Marshall, a 61-year-old widow, at her rural home in Londonderry County. The crime Wayne committed was not just murder. It was an act so brutal it shocked the entire local community. Mrs. Marshall lived alone, and the killer took advantage of that vulnerability. Wayne spent 11 years on death row, longer than any other inmate in Virginia at that time, 11 years living and waiting in the haunting fear of a scheduled death. Finally, on August 30th, 1989, at age 34, he was executed by electric chair. The recording is presented exactly as it was recorded. The only changes are improved audio quality and removal of excessively long silences, but the original context remains intact. One more notable detail is that one of the voices heard in the recording is believed to belong to Jerry Bronson Givens, Virginia's chief executioner from 1982 to 1999. Many years later, this same man became a fierce opponent of the death penalty, a controversial and haunting transformation. The recording begins with a voice testing from the governor's office. Testing 1, 2 from the governor's office to 2241. Is that correct? A brief confirmation. August 30th, 1989. At 10:53 p.m., the electric chair test was completed. In the initial exchanges, there is nothing but technical language, cold, procedural. No one mentions that a human being is about to die, only words like inmate, execution, procedure. This is not a personal tragedy being prepared, but an administrative process that needs to be carried out according to regulations and fully documented. At 10:54 p.m., staff enter the cell block to read the court order. The reading voice echoes in the absolute silence of the small room. The court order, dry legal lines confirming that Alton Wayne will be deprived of his life tonight. Someone on the line notes they can hear Mr. Mooney in the background. These small details, names of people, faint sounds, make the scene more frightening by its ordinariness. 10:56, the reading of the order is complete. An important procedure has been carried out. Now, there are no more legal obstacles. At 10:57 p.m., the sound of the cell unlocking rings out, the metallic clang, a brief sound, but carrying terrible meaning. In the history of executions in the United States, the moment the cell door opens is considered the final boundary between life and forewarned death. Death row inmates know exactly what awaits them on the other side of the corridor. No more hope for a last-minute pardon, no more call from the governor, no more miracles. Only one path remains, Walk those final steps or be carried if the legs no longer have strength. Human psychology in that moment typically oscillates between three states: extreme panic, frightening calm, or complete refusal to accept reality. Some inmates scream, beg, struggle. Others walk out with a strange resolve, as if they accepted their fate long ago. And there are those who seem to no longer be there. Their minds have disconnected from their bodies to avoid the final pain. At 10:58 p.m., a detail is recorded. Alton Wayne is being carried to the execution chamber. The word carried shows he cannot walk on his own. Perhaps his legs have collapsed from fear, or his mind has refused to cooperate with his body on this final journey. Execution staff are familiar with this. They have been trained to handle every situation, from those who walk calmly to those who must be dragged. The corridor from the cell to the execution chamber is not long, perhaps just a few meters. But for the person being carried, that distance must feel endless. Each passing second is a final second of life. Fluorescent lights shine down coldly. The footsteps of execution staff echo steadily. No one speaks, only heavy breathing and the voice on the phone line documenting each movement. 10:58, inmate being carried to chambers. The voice repeats. 10:58, inmate carried to chambers. No emotion, no hesitation, as if describing a manufacturing process, not a human life approaching its end. At 10:58 p.m., Alton Wayne was placed in the electric chair. Thick straps began to be tightened on his body, around his chest, arms, wrists, thighs, and ankles. All at once, many hands working with practiced coordination. The purpose of these straps is not only to keep the inmate still, but also to prevent the body from convulsing violently when high-voltage electricity runs through it. This is a procedure that has been performed hundreds of times, and each movement is calculated to ensure maximum efficiency. The warden stepped forward and asked Wayne if he wanted to say anything final. This is the last moment a death row inmate can use their voice. Wayne's voice rang out in the execution chamber, trembling but clear. I would like to express that what is about to take place here is a murder. And I forgive everyone involved in this murder. I don't hate nobody, and I love them. The people recording on the phone line fumbled. They had to ask again. Did you read that? Yeah, I'm trying to get it. They tried to record every word exactly, repeating to each other. I would like to express that what is about to take place here is a murder. I forgive everyone. I love everyone. This was not an apology to the victim, nor a denial of guilt. This was a philosophical and moral declaration. Among the hundreds of death row inmates executed across America, each person chooses to use their final words in a different way. Some apologize to the victim's family with belated tears. Some firmly declare innocence until the end, screaming that the system made a mistake. Others choose complete silence, refusing to give the witnesses any satisfaction. But Alton Wayne chose forgiveness, a rare act reflecting either deep acceptance of fate or strong religious belief. The words, "This is a murder," reflect a philosophical view that state-sponsored execution is no different from the crime for which he was convicted. In Wayne's mind, perhaps the line between justice and revenge had become blurred. Immediately after, staff placed the leather mask and metal cap on Wayne's head. This cap contains the electrode that will conduct electricity into the body. The mask obscures the face, a way to protect witnesses from having to see the final expression of pain and fear. 11:59 p.m., a chaplain began to pray. His voice whispered, the prayer inaudible on the recording, but one can guess, words asking for forgiveness, rest for the soul, and mercy from the Almighty. While the chaplain prayed, staff wiped sweat from Wayne's forehead, arms, and feet. This is an important technical detail. Sweat reduces electrical conductivity, which could make the process longer and more painful. But it is also a detail both humane and cruel. Wayne's body is reacting to extreme fear, secreting sweat in the final moment, and those about to kill him must wipe it away to ensure death occurs smoothly. At 11:59 p.m., the key was placed in the proper position. The warden looked around the room one last time, then nodded. Electric current began running through Alton Wayne's body. There was no scream. The mask and electricity had made the body rigid immediately. Only heavy silence and the echo of the generator. 11:01 p.m., the second jolt. 11:02 p.m., completed. Outside, the voices of protesters against the death penalty rang out faintly. Life continued on the other side of the wall, but in this execution chamber, a human being had just ceased to exist. At 11:04 p.m., Wayne's shirt was pulled open so the doctor could examine him. A stethoscope was placed on his chest, searching for a heartbeat, signs of life. Nothing. Only the silence of a body that had stopped functioning. 11:05 p.m., Alton Wayne was officially pronounced dead. The voice on the line recorded dryly. 11:05. Doctor examined and pronounced dead. The curtains covering the execution chamber were drawn down. The witnesses, representatives from the governor's office, press reporters, and possibly the victim's family, began to leave. The call ended with a strangely ordinary thank you. You're great. Thanks. An extraordinary evening ended with everyday words, as if they had just completed routine office work. In just 7 minutes, from 10:58 p.m. to 11:05 p.m., a human life was terminated through legal procedure. No chaos, no drama like in movies, only the terrifying industrialization of state-executed death. The Virginia electric chair, once seen as a symbol of justice and technical progress in the early 20th century, had now become a historical relic. Most states in the U.S. have switched to lethal injection, believed to be more humane because death row inmates simply seem to fall asleep. But the debate continues. Is there truly any humane form of execution, or is its nature always cruel, regardless of method? Jerry Givens, who may have been present in the execution chamber that night, had a haunting journey. After carrying out 62 executions during his 17 years as Virginia's chief executioner, he became an anti-death penalty activist. He said he was haunted by the faces of those he killed, faces that appeared in dreams in quiet moments. He began to believe that many of them might have been innocent, and the justice system has serious flaws that are unacceptable when the price is human life. Givens once said in an interview, "I used to believe I was serving justice, but now I realize I was just a tool of a system that is sometimes wrong in ways that cannot be undone." As for R.M. Oliver and the mysterious recordings he left behind, the reason he kept them for so many years remains an unanswered question. Perhaps he wanted to preserve historical evidence, believing that future generations needed to know the truth about how the state executes death. Perhaps he felt a moral responsibility that these recordings should not disappear with him into the grave. Or perhaps, in his final days, he wanted to leave a legacy, a reminder that behind every death sentence is a real human being, a real story, and a real death that cannot be reversed. These recordings remind us of an uncomfortable truth. Behind abstract debates about justice, deterrence, and retribution are real human beings, however guilty they may be, and a cold process that turns life into death in a matter of minutes. The question that Alton Wayne posed in his final statement remains, echoing across the decades. Is justice truly achieved through death, or are we simply creating more victims?